We ride together, we die together.
Welcome back to the Cinema Squad. I'm Austin. This is Roman, and today we're going to be talking about Bad Boys: Ride or Die. This is the fourth installment in the Bad Boys series, and honestly, I'm shocked that we even have four Bad Boy movies. This is just a really fun summer blockbuster to kick off the summer. Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, these guys are really just iconic actors. Will Smith, honestly, growing up was one of the funniest actors that I would watch, especially with Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Oh yeah.
Martin had his own show as well. And so I just love seeing these guys still doing their thing and still, having these fun action movies. I just think overall this is a movie that really you don't have to go in worrying about any agendas being pushed. There's just a fun action movie, fun characters. The story really progresses. Mike Lowry, he's getting married in this movie,
Yep.
and you're seeing some growth in his character development, and it plays a large part of this movie, right?
Yeah.
Just the way he's kind of grasping with the whole, a lot of people in my life have been dying, and I think it's a really good character development for him. And then you have Martin Lawrence, Marcus Burnett, who is really still that like just goofy like family man. So I think overall there's a lot of fun elements to this movie. But Roman, I want to hear what your thoughts are.
Well, first of all, speaking to that, I want to mention that I love the way that they still managed to bring Captain Howard back in this film, even though he killed in the previous film. But they did manage to bring him back, and I thought it was clever how they did it, and it was really, really fun. But the main takeaway that I had was, I know Austin may not agree with this, but all these movies have always had a little bit of humor. That's what they're for. But I thought this one was one of the funniest. There were definitely some laugh out loud moments. But the main thing was when you're doing a movie with as big as this, set in Miami, with everything, and the first two movies are directed by Michael Bay. They're going to be big. They're going to have these big, incredible stylistic shots. If you're in Miami, there's going to be a lot of color. There's going to be a lot of style. And this movie, like the previous three before it, did not disappoint stylistically. There were a lot of insane shots where we're like, how did they do that? Even in the
Yeah,
first couple of scenes, they did a shot from inside of Marcus's wristwatch,
yeah,
and we sat there going, how did they do that?
yeah,
And there was a shootout scene where they played it like a video game. We followed the gun across the room, and it
yeah,
was like some of those shots you're looking at and you're like, holy smokes, like
yeah.
that is hardcore, and you can't fathom how they might have done it. And there were just some big stylistic
Yeah,
shots.
that shot at the end with when they're in the shootout at the abandoned amusement park, and when Mike threw the gun to Marcus, and it literally like the camera literally followed the gun into the hand of
Yeah.
Marcus, and then they had like the first person shooter aspect of it, and it really made you feel like you were kind of
Well,
in that
the
video game.
cool thing about the first person shooter part too was every time they would go to the first person shooter view, it would pull back and it would be a different person on the other end of it. And
Yeah,
then they'd go back to the first person, then it would pull back and be a different person again. And I was like, they are
yeah,
really going for this.
yeah.
And obviously, Michael Bay hasn't directed the last two. It's been a couple of guys whose names escape me. But they have really picked up that stylistic benchmark that Michael Bay is so well known for. And Michael Bay even had a cameo in this one,
Yeah.
which I thought was fun. And I'll let you talk about
Well, I just
some of
think that
the
this seems like a movie that would not be made in today's modern Hollywood. Because
and yet it
you look
was.
back 10 years ago, this seems like an action flick from back then.
Yeah,
And I think a lot that has to do with not only Jerry Bruckheimer still heading up this movie,
yeah,
but you also have Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, who are actors that are still synonymous with those action movies or those
yeah,
comedies from back in the day. And so you're still going to get that same flavor. And I like that because you just like those are some actors that you really don't have that same star quality nowadays.
yeah.
But I think this movie was so fast paced with the action,
Hmm.
and one of the things that I wanted to talk about, Roman, was the helicopter scene when they're transporting Mike's son to Miami, and they had that whole thing where the helicopter was going down, and they're all hanging from the cockpit,
Oh yeah,
and the cage falling that his son
yeah.
was in, and they're trying to
The
grab onto it to rescue him,
yeah, you
and
got
it
the
just was like
carrier.
it was just like super action packed nonstop where it like kind of heart pounding, making you feel like what is going to actually happen. And the way they shot that with like things flying off the helicopter and things flying past them and them punching the bad guys and all that kind of stuff like it just set this like stage that like most action films I don't feel like have the same
There
same like fast paced camera work.
there were a couple things that we all looked at each other and we were like, "Oh my God."
Yeah,
Like
wow.
edge of your seat moments
Yeah.
and you're like, "Oh man."
Like you have movies nowadays that people think of when you're thinking of action films. You're thinking of like big IPs like Marvel and
Mhm.
superhero films and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And like obviously they have their own type of stylistic action. but this was not that. This actually made you feel like you were part of the action,
Yeah.
and I think that was what was so cool about
Bad
it.
Boys has a style of its own, and it's had its own style for 30 years,
Yeah,
and it did not misstep as far as the style is concerned. Obviously, it didn't,
yeah,
and I do have to mention it in this video. Obviously, it didn't have the big, massive car chase that Bad Boys 2 gave us. Of course, I'm going to mention it. I think it's one of the best sequels out there.
yeah,
But so I had to throw in Bad Boys 2. But this one, along with Bad Boys for Life, which is the previous movie, and this one did not disappoint, did not sully what Michael Bay started.
yeah,
And there was a lot of really good new cast members and some newer cast members that we saw in the previous movie,
yeah.
since it had been 17 years since Bad Boys 2.
And
And
one of those characters is Reggie, and
Reggie,
it's just you see him from a little boy
talk about
in
Reggie.
Bad Boys 2, and now you see him now who's at home in Marcus's house. And for those of you who have seen the movie and will see the movie, it's when the bad guys are coming in at Marcus's house and they call Reggie and say, "You need to get my family safe, like get the girls safe." And
Because Reggie's
obviously
a Marine.
he's a Marine,
Yeah,
right? And but he's sitting there playing video games, and all of a sudden he goes into this beast mode. They break into the house, and Reggie literally takes out 15 guys. And like it
yeah,
was like the coolest scene because the way they shot that was from like you were watching it from the camera that Marcus and Mike
yeah,
were watching, but you were also watching it from the house view, and it was going back and
yeah,
forth. And Reggie, like honestly, outstanding character of the
yeah.
film. Obviously,
Reggie
Mike,
won the day.
yeah, Reggie won the day, and they
Yeah,
even have a little joke. I won't spoil this, but they have a little joke at the end with Reggie and Mike and Marcus, and it's really funny, kind of pays that off.
yeah.
So I think that was
And it harkens back to the first time we saw Reggie, which was at the front door when he's coming to ask Marcus's daughter out
right.
in Bad Boys 2.
Yeah,
And it had the same camera angle to harken back to the first time we met Reggie, and it's the
yeah,
same actor,
yeah,
like 20 years later, which is funny. But Reggie definitely had his moment in the sun. And
yeah.
I'd be really interested to see if they do a fifth movie,
Will he join them in there?
will
Yeah,
Reggie show back up, because Reggie proves not to be that silly kid anymore,
yeah.
which would
No,
be
and
good.
that's what I love about these movies. They're action packed, but they're also family oriented. I mean, Mike and Marcus are basically blood brothers. That's how they treat each other. But also, you have the aspect with the kids, and they're just watching out for each other. And I think that family dynamic is strong. Something you don't always see in movies nowadays. One of the few things that I thought were just honorable mentions is Eon Grufford. Many of you would know
Mhm.
him playing Mr. Fantastic in the Fantastic Four movies. Really cool seeing him. He was the guy who was becoming the mayor in this movie. And then, Vanessa Hudgens returned
Yep,
along with Alexandra Ludwig.
yep.
So they were kind of the tech ops people that were in Bad Boys for Life. And then one of the things, Roman, that everyone's talking about this, but I just think it's funny, is that Bad Boys for Life should have been the name of
Of
this
this
one
movie,
because it's the fourth one. I just don't
yeah,
think they knew they were going to get another one at that point. But
yeah.
I think at the end of the day, like just that whole idea of we ride together, we die together, Bad Boys for Life. That's still the crux of these movies.
It was truly a summer blockbuster, and it feels like now, with the way that the box office has changed and the way that, like, we have to judge the success and failure of a movie differently than box office, because not everybody goes to the movies anymore. It feels like this is a summer blockbuster, and I have to say, with Twisters coming right on the heels of it, I feel like the summer blockbuster's coming back. At
Maybe
least I
so.
hope, because we were trying to get tickets for this movie, and you told me, like, oh, this other theater is sold out
Yeah,
of the showing, and that made me happy, because I was like, people are coming to see this movie.
yeah.
People want to see this movie, and I think it really paid off. Like, we walked in that theater, and there were so many different, like, older people, younger people, so many different kind of people in this theater. It's like everybody loves the Bad Boys.
Yeah. But anyway, let us know what you think in the comments. Like this video and subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time.
Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they